Since I apparently broke a couple of people's brains with the ending of my last video, welcome to part 21 of my Miraculous redesign series, where we are revisiting the character seen in part 3, Viperian, aka Luca Caffin. But why? I know some of you are probably thinking. The original redesign was excellent. It took an already pretty decent design and made it better. You may also be thinking, there are actually a few reasons why I've decided to go back and revisit him. But the biggest one is time. It has been just about a year since I uploaded Viperian's original redesign, and I don't really like it as much as I used to. Now, that's not to say I hate it. I still like it, but not as much as I used to. Also, doesn't help that it looks so much like his original suit. Like, here's a little comparison for you. Here is his OG suit, and here's the original redesign. I feel like you can kind of see what I mean. They're definitely not identical, by no means, but they are similar enough that I've kind of found myself not liking the original as much as I used to. However, another thing has happened in the almost year since the original Viperian video, that being, well, Season 6. And if you've been around for a minute, you would know that I sort of talked about this in Purple Tigress's video, but I'm not done, so here we go again. His Season 6 suit design kinda sucks. If you need a refresher on what it looks like, here you go. Now, here's the weird thing. I have actually kind of found myself liking it, but only from, like, the waist up. And I genuinely think that's because that's where all the actual detail is. Because, like, here's a visual real quick. You see him like this, and you're like, damn, that's actually kind of cool. But then when you see it with the bottom half, it's like, where the heck did all the detail go? Like, they tried to do something with his, like, boots, shoes, whatever the frick the footwear is, but, like, it doesn't really do much in terms of evening out the design. And then I sort of feel like they just rubbed salt in the wound, because in Mr. Agrest, we got to see his OG suit in the new art style, and let me just show you. Now, the lighting's kind of funky because it is at night, so it could be darkening the colors somewhat, but I do not care. It looks so good. Like, the variation in the textures alone does so much in terms of, like, helping the design. Like, I know his original had, like, some variation, but I feel like the original design in the Season 6 art style just does so much more for the suit that the original animation couldn't. To the point where I honestly kind of wish they had just kept his original suit, but in the new art style. And, like, I don't see why they couldn't have. Both Bunnix and Argos got to keep their original designs. At least from what I can tell. So yes, all that combined, I decided to go back and revisit the Viperian redesign. And this is where I also announced that I will be revisiting both the bug and the cat as well, for similar reasons. Anyways, we got about 4 minutes left, so let's actually get into the design aspect of this video, because that's what this whole series is for. Now, you may think that coming up with a new design for him was easy. I've done him before, so it shouldn't have been that hard, but the fact that I had done him before is what made things a little difficult. However, I do like what I wound up coming up with. A couple things I knew I wanted to do was keep the light teal segmented bit that covers his inner legs and torso in both his canon design and the original redesign, and add something with a scale pattern and preferably make it darker than the rest of the outfit. And I'm actually coloring that part now. The scales came out kinda crooked after I outlined them, but it was not intended to be that way, but that just sort of happened. I also wound up going over the initial blue I used with a teal just to make it a little bit more uniform with the rest of the outfit. I gave his arms this sort of squiggly, thick-ish pattern, which is based off of a scale pattern seen on certain kinds of snakes. Here's the inspo pic I used for that, actually. I also wound up putting a similar pattern on his boots just to add a little bit more detail on his legs. Because I was originally going to do a scale pattern there, but it would have taken way too much time for me to do, and in all retrospect, would not have looked all that good. Now, coincidentally, that pattern actually did a really good job at replacing the initial diamond pattern I used on his original redesign. I love it when stuff works out well. Anyway, personality-wise, I still love Luca. I say that knowing that he's gotten a little bit of hate from some fans because of the way they portrayed him in Mr. Agrest. To which I say to that, I think that he knows something that the rest of the cast and us as the audience don't know. Also, considering the situation that happened in, Marinette showing up, requesting to use his Miraculous, spilling her guts to him, and then her reversing it so that only she remembers it happened, is almost the exact same thing he did to her in the flashback at the start of the episode. Does that fully excuse his actions? No, but that's also part of why I feel like he knows more than he's letting on, because I don't think he would have acted that way unless he had his reasons to. But yeah, no, he knows more than he's letting on. Anyway, unlike so many other characters, I actually already have a pretty clear idea on how I'm gonna write Luca. Like with most characters, the essence of his canon self is still gonna be there to a degree. However, as usual, I am changing some things. First off, and this is in no way original, most people do this for him, and it's not a personality thing but a visual thing, he has piercings now. However, they vanish in his hero form because identity protection. And then his personality is very much a matter of how people see him and how he himself and people close to him see him. People who don't know him all that well see this really tall, scary-looking guy and run for the hills. Seriously, Rose almost screamed her head off the first time she met him. However, once you get to know him, you find out that he's actually a really calm, really chill guy who, on the inside, just so happens to be a little bit of a hot mess. And then there's his powers. Now, I've thought about changing it, just like how I've thought about changing Bunnix's. I actually have a pretty damn clear idea of what I do if I decide to change it. Now, the change could also be a secondary ability if I do end up keeping Second Chance. However, I've thought about ditching the time-based abilities, or like the time travel ones, because it just adds a bit of confusion to the plot that I don't want to bring. So it's very much a 50-50 chance. I'll keep you guys updated though. As for everything else, you're just gonna have to stick around and see what I end up doing. Now, if there's anything I didn't cover here, please note that it may have been covered back in his original video, so I encourage you go watch that. Anyway, tell me what you think of the revisited Viperian redesign in the comments. And next up, we are revisiting Cat Noir, so I hope you stick around for that. Welcome to part 22 of my Miraculous redesign series, where today we are revisiting Cat Noir, aka Adrian Agrest. But why are you revisiting Cat Noir? You may be asking. Well, first off, I have better reasons to revisit him and Ladybug than I did for revisiting Viperian. Considering at the time I did them, I wasn't rewriting the series yet, and I sorta just did them for the hell of it. Also, his original video is only like 2 minutes long, and I have a lot more to talk about, hence why this is almost like 4 times the length. Anyway, part of why I am revisiting the characters I am, Viperian, Cat Noir, and soon Ladybug, is because they don't really match with the rest of the cast. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, I do plan on making a more in-depth video later down the line, but the summary of it is, when redesigning a majority of the main hero cast, I wound up ditching the skin-tight suits that most of their canon selves wear, which kind of led to me experimenting a lot with layering and textures. Once again, planning to make a more in-depth video down the line. But in the meantime, if you're new, or if you've been here for a while and you just can't remember, here is the original Cat Noir redesign. Now, I do still like aspects about it. I love the neon green accents, and that's actually sort of where things end. Now, that's not to say I don't like it. I do still like it. In fact, I really like it. But I just knew I could do more. And that I could also tie this suit change into a way of physically showing Adrian and Marinette's development over the course of the series. So essentially, what I am thinking about doing is having their original redesigns be their suits for the first 2 seasons, and then the season 2 finale, which is still Heroes Day, by the way. At the end of that, we see the new suits come in as a way of showing that even in just that little less than a year that they've been doing this at that point, they have grown so much as heroes, and more importantly, as people. But we will get to that in a minute because I want to talk design stuff first. Now, when it comes to this design, I'm gonna be honest, it sort of just spawned. Seriously, because what do you mean I look away for a second and next thing I know he has a jacket and then I'm drawing him in almost knee-high boots? I think I let this guy have a little bit too much influence on this design. However, I'm not even mad because it looks good! Anyways, I wound up keeping the claw marks and the neon green accents. However, I got rid of the bells. I think most people know Cat Noir's canon design and how he has that bell around his neck. And in my original redesign, I moved them to be at his wrists. However, this time around, I decided to ditch them entirely. Another small detail that you may have noticed is his hair. In both his canon design and his original redesign, it's relatively straight, layered but straight. But as you can see here, it's curly now. And if you were around for Argos's video, you would know the reason why I did that is because I wanted you to be able to tell the two of them apart a little bit more. Like, again, as stated in his video, they're cousins, not siblings. Now, I did hear something that might explain the reason why they look more like siblings than cousins. Don't know how true it is, but essentially, the budget at that point was so in the trash that they just decided to reuse Adrian's model and tweak a couple things. Again, I don't know how true that is, it's just something I heard. In other news, let us talk canon Adrian. I'm gonna be the first one to say it. I think the writers are afraid of him. Because why is it that half the time he is more of a side character than the actual side characters? Like, they give the illusion of him being an actual main character with the fact that he appears in some capacity in every episode. And the key word there is in some capacity, because I could have sworn that there were some episodes where we only see him as Cat Noir. And then they go a good portion of the series hyping up like, yeah, Ladybug and Cat Noir, they're stronger together. But then he's like completely missing from the final battle, because then like the final battle happens and it's just Marinette with both the Ladybug and the Black Cat Miraculous. Like, come on. Oh, but Adrian was in London during the final battle. Yeah, you know the writers didn't need to do that, right? Seriously, because in season 6, we find out that Gabriel literally left Adrian a letter explaining everything, hoping he would find it and take over as Hawkmoth. But then again, that was under the assumption that Lila didn't get her hands on the Miraculous, which we know she did. So that kind of threw a wrench into things, but like, still. The thing that gets me is Adrian had the potential to play an absolutely massive part in the final battle, but instead, they decided to, as already mentioned, ship him off to London. However, we will be bringing that potential to light within the rewrite. Now, I will say, I am still writing season 1. I know it's been almost a year, over a year actually, since I started this, and I am still on season 1. Look, Chapter 1 took me 9 months to write, Chapter 2 only took me a couple of weeks, and I've been a little bit stuck with Chapter 3. But I mostly pin that on the fact that episodes 1 and 2 were the Origins rewrite, and episode 3 is the original episode for season 1. Once I get to episode 4, things hopefully won't take as long, given from episode 4 to the season 1 finale, it is all just a rewrite of existing episodes. But yes, so rewrite Adrian. Let's talk about him. First off, I actually want him to come off as more of a main character than he does in the series. The way I plan on doing this is by alternating between his and Marinette's POV throughout the episodes, and also having a lot more Adrian-centric episodes. Or I guess technically chapters, because this is in book format and not show format. Also, something I feel like I've mentioned in somebody else's video, but I might not have, is me wanting to cover a lot of darker and or heavier subjects within my rewrite. And I bring that up because Adrian's gonna end up dealing with a lot of it, because just going off of his canon self and how I am rewriting him so far, he's dealing with the grief of his mother's death, his father being a piece of shit, and all around just being in the modeling industry, which I feel like most people know at this point is like pretty damn toxic. And in this case, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like slightly worse because his piece of shit father is also technically his agent. So yeah, he's gonna have to work through a lot of things, and unlike the canon, which overlooked his trauma until season 6, where he was finally able to speak his mind about what he thought of his father in Mr. Agrest, and as a reckless driver, which no, the dub is not out yet, I went and watched the sub for it, is seeing a therapist, so good for him. But that is the current status of canon Adrian. My Adrian is going to be working through a lot of this shit as the rewrite goes on. Not to mention, I am going to write him to be sheltered, but not, like, completely oblivious, if that makes any sense. Because, like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like a lot of people tend to write Adrian to be this, like, oblivious, can do no wrong sunshine child, when, like, we have seen him out for blood on several occasions. The biggest example I will give is season 5's episode Derision, when he literally almost killed Kim. Because, like, Adrian may be smooth-brained at times, but then again, like, who in the cast isn't? But he does know things. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he actively suspects that his father was in fact Hawkmoth, and all his various other names. But that could very well be a topic for another day. Anyway, next up we are revisiting Ladybug. In the meantime, however, tell me what you think of the revisited Cat Noir redesign in the comments. Welcome to part 23, aka the more or less true final part of my Miraculous redesign series, where today we are revisiting Ladybug, aka Marinette Dupenchang. Now, I know I said Argos was the final part, but then I went back and decided to redo Viperion, Cat Noir, and now Ladybug, so she's now technically the true final part, but I also only kind of mean that because this is a very deep and complex rewrite. So occasionally you might see me pop in, do another video on the rewrite and redesign stuff, likely featuring casual designs for the characters, along with me just yapping for 3 to 9 minutes, so not all that different from what's going on now, to be honest. As for what to expect during the time in between those, I kind of outlined it in Argos's video, but also not really. It's really just gonna be more art stuff. Probably mostly fan art, however, I want to try and throw some original art in there as well. And maybe, if I have the motivation, another redesign series, but without the rewrite aspect. Anyway, let us get into Ladybug. Now, similarly to Cat Noir's rework last episode, I kept her original redesign as the base for this rework, and I just sort of built off of that. For anybody who doesn't remember, here is her original redesign. Ignore the subtitle, I'm still getting the hang of how to use TikTok. And this is where I remind you that I don't hate her original redesign, I just know I can do better, and that's why we are revisiting her. But yeah, so the only thing I really changed between this revisited version of her redesign and her original redesign is that she has armor now. And the reason I did that is quite simple, actually. Ladybugs are a kind of beetle. Beetles have that, like, firmer shell that I knew would translate really well into armor, so I decided to actually give her armor this time. It also just felt, like, really obvious. Anyways, on to character shit, both canonical and rewrite. I'm going to be honest when I say I think that Marinette has had the most backtracking development out of any character in this whole show. Now, this does need a little context, and so I'm going to use our main male protagonist, Adrian, as that context/case study. As I said back in Cat Noir's rework, Adrian half the time is written to be a side character masquerading as a main character. The writers rarely ever try to develop him and or just kind of neglect him. They only recently, as of season 6, started to actually give him some solid development and actual solid main character energy. This is in stark contrast to Marinette. Marinette is the main character. There is no disputing that. So you would sort of expect her to, in a show especially as long-running as Miraculous, to have a lot of character development. But the issue is that she really doesn't. Like, within each individual season, yeah, she almost always does feature some form of development for that season. However, the following season, it's almost always forgotten. It's like she doesn't actually learn anything from her experiences. Or at least that she doesn't retain the lessons. The two most notable examples of this are, 1, the fact that she's not gotten any less awkward than she was back in season 1. If anything, she's somehow gotten a bit more awkward. And secondly, the fact that she still has those stalkerish tendencies. Though I guess you could make a case for the stalkerish tendencies still being around due to personal insecurity. However, that also doesn't go with the bit of character development she's had. I'm not gonna lie, I think the only part of her character development that has stuck, but only sticks when it's convenient for the plot, is the trauma. Like, the overall writing from episode to episode in season 6 has gotten better. However, from character to character, it's sort of a 50-50, because you have the characters that were heavily neglected in the first 5 seasons finally getting the development they need. Meanwhile, a lot of the other characters, the characters that did get a lot of focus in the earlier seasons, sort of not. But then again, I think season 6 is maybe halfway through being aired, so it's still early. I will say this though, when it comes to rewriting her, I'm honestly struggling to write early Marinette. I honestly have such a clear idea on how I want this to end and how I want her to be at the end that I'm struggling to write her at the start. I sometimes feel like I'm writing her to be too self-confident and not anxious enough. So I might go back and retouch the first couple chapters, which are already done, to make it a bit more apparent that she's not quite comfortable in her own shoes as Ladybug yet. And just like, sort of in general. Conclusion, I do see why they decided to place Origins midway through season 1 instead of at the start of season 1 like I am. And to anybody who is wondering why I don't just change it so that Origins is midway through season 1, I'm sort of in too deep and I kind of like where it is having it at the start rather than like the middle. I mean, the canon timeline is already confusing enough. What do you mean the first 5 seasons take place over the course of 9 months? Maybe one day I'll make a video breaking down the canon timeline because, as said, it only takes place over the course of 9 months. Meanwhile, mine is going to take place over the course of about 2 years. With the last 2-ish minutes, I want to talk about ships. Now, this does sort of tie into some rewrite timeline stuff, and I do plan on doing a more in-depth video on that as well down the line, but here's a little sneak peek, I guess. Adrianette/Lady Noir is still going to be the endgame. However, we're gonna take a couple steps to get there. Because this thing is 5 seasons/books, I need it to be a bit of a slow burn. So for anyone who likes them, I am here to inform you that Luca and Marinette are still happening. Only for a little while though. Marinette and Luca's relationship is going to occupy a majority, if not the entirety, of season 3. Which I have also actually dubbed the Summer of Love. I have dubbed it that because it takes place over the course of a summer from June through September, and then love is in the air, so it just sort of made sense. If you're wondering about Adrian and Kagami, they have their own thing going on, which will be explained in the story itself. The last thing I changed from her original redesign to now is her hairstyle. In the original redesign, I kept them as pigtails, however they are now braids. My reason for doing that is actually quite simple. I just wanted to change the pigtails. Now don't get me wrong, the pigtails are adorable. They just don't really work here. Because by the time Marinette's suit evolves from the original redesign, see Cat Noir's video for details, she is 17. And the reason why I changed it, partly because of her age, is because pigtails are often viewed as kid-like and childish, compared to braids, or twin braids in this case, which are often seen as a bit older. And that honestly works for the development of her character as well. When we first see her, she is a relatively self-conscious 16-year-old girl who is still getting a hang of this whole superhero thing. However, by the time she comes to wearing this suit, she is 17, she's been at it for almost a year, and knows what she's doing. But that is all information you'll have to read about down the line. Anyway, we are coming up on the end here. I hope you stick around for what I do in the future, and I really hope that you like Ladybug's rework.